I'm going to tell you what really makes gamers angry. It's not that all we talk about is price. Somebody mentioned from a different country that Americans are obsessed with the prices of GPUs, but it's not really just the price. It's the value that you're paying and how it, without transparency in a lot of cases, changed almost overnight, and you can't really logically make it make sense. That's why a lot of gamers are upset. Many gamers are fine with spending their hard-earned money and buying very expensive PC parts, but when they see something like the 3080 go from $699 to $1199 with the 4080, and yeah, you're getting more performance, but it's also years after, it really seems like Nvidia, and of course we'll talk about AMD, is just taking advantage of everything that happened during the last 2 years. And remember to subscribe and smash that like button if you like GPU content like this and just getting that information out there. Let's break it down. It was a free-for-all during the last few years. Nobody could get GPUs, especially in 2021, and scalpers ran amok. The secondhand market got really crazy, and even the GPU companies themselves started pricing everything, and it went really out of whack. While I may say that the 4080, I'm going to talk about both of them, the 4080 16 gigabyte and the fake 4080 12 gigabyte, which is now the 4070 Ti, and even that thumbnail looks like a middle finger that basically it's giving to gamers, not because the performance is terrible, but because the price it's coming in at is terrible. So during the last few years, these GPUs are definitely the culmination of terrible pricing, but if we look back, people didn't notice that maybe the 3080 12 gigabyte was the start of something awful. Now, Nvidia could have easily have made that just a little bit more than the original $699, but they wanted to take advantage of the GPU craze that was going on, mostly the mining market. Let's really be honest here. Gaming demand, we see what's happening now. Gamers aren't buying these really expensive GPUs, so Nvidia didn't set an official MSRP for the 3080 12 gigabyte, but it showed up basically at the same price as the current 4080. That's the exact price. $1199 roughly was the cheapest one, and most of them, even the Strix, was like over $1,500 for a 3080, and this was from the MSRP, as good as you can get an MSRP at that time, which is really sketchy. And of course, Nvidia never made a Founders Edition of the 12 gigabyte version, which at the end of the day was just a little bit better than the 10 gigabyte version. It wasn't that much better. It had 2 more gigabytes of VRAM, some more CUDA cores. It wasn't like going up a completely different level. You were really getting hosed really bad, from $700 to over $1,200 for like this much performance gain. It wasn't even as good as a 3080 Ti. That's how much you can really see that it was absolutely terrible. So the problem here is gamers saw this and they were mad at that, but since everybody wanted GPUs, people were like, all right, whatever, they'll pay $1,200 for a 3080. And then of course, as the market in 2022 started to disappear, crypto and Ethereum disappeared, people were like, wait, what's going on here? Nvidia is going to price a 4080 16 gigabyte at $1199. That seems way too expensive, because most people remember the original 3080, not the 12 gigabyte one. That one slowly started going down in price as nobody bought it to like $1,900, but it remained pretty expensive. Nvidia probably thought, hey, our last 3080 was over $1,200, and the 4080 does give you more performance and DLSS 3.0, which everybody loves to either make fun of because it's fake frames, or when you look at Nvidia's graphs, it's the best way that they can sort of, use to make it look much better than last generation, which is another reason why gamers are mad. It's not like the 4080 is a huge difference from what came before it. The 4090 mostly is, but it was already much more expensive. It was easier for Nvidia to do that magic from the 3090 to the 4090. By magic, I mean make the price go up only $100 to $1,599 and then double the performance. They had the room to do that because the GPU was already $1,499 as the 3090 was, and then $100 more 4090, everybody's happy and ignores that GPU because there's really nothing to compare it to. But the 4080 and the 3080, much more important GPUs in a way, because those were before kind of like mid to high end. Now, if you're buying a 4080, it's basically high end, and then a 4090 is like super high end. So Nvidia definitely changed the product stack. Before, it used to be a Titan GPU. That's basically what the 4090 turned into. So lack of transparency, really why gamers are very, very mad. And the 4080 16 gigabyte and the 4070 Ti 12 gigabyte really are the GPUs that now really show you how upset gamers are. I just searched on Newegg and there are various 4080s in stock everywhere. And if you notice one thing, you're not going to find any at the $1199 MSRP. And the same thing if you search for the 4070 Ti, I only found one $799 MSRP one. Everything else is $800 to $900 plus. And with the 4080, the only MSRP one you're going to find, well, look at the coincidence. It's by Nvidia at Best Buy, $1199. Everything else is 12 something, 13, 14, even 1500 MSRP for a 4080. Why is that? Well, according to all of the, the Nvidia third-party GPU manufacturers like EVGA that left, they said that Nvidia, basically, the business practices were not very friendly to even the AIB partners. That means that these guys do not want to sell you an MSRP GPU because they have really thin margins on them. They have to make up that cost somewhere, and they just sell a couple of the very low-end models to make it seem like they're selling a 4070 Ti at $799 or a 4080 at $1199, and then they give you a little bit of RGB, maybe a beefed up cooler, and of course they love to use the word OC for overclocking and then charge a massive premium. It's really funny what they'll do with some of these models. Like they'll have a cheaper version like the Asus TUF, then they'll have the Asus TUF OC, which is often hundreds of dollars more, and then they'll have the Strix at the very top end. So it's a bit of a ridiculous pricing, and there's very little difference between these GPUs aside from the aesthetics and maybe a little bit more performance. We're talking about single digit performance points here that does not justify, in some cases, $350 if you compare the base 4080 compared to the Strix. Same thing with the 4070 Ti. So these board partners are being forced into that position to give you a little bit and charge you a lot more. You're paying a huge amount on the top end, not even counting that the MSRP price, the base price, is already very high. So this is a very unhealthy relationship between Nvidia, gamers, and its board partners, because the board partners are forced to put higher pricing, and the performance gains are great in many cases for RTX 4000, but they're not good enough to justify these high prices. AMD has had its own set of issues. They like to price their GPUs just a little bit below what Nvidia has, but at the end of the day, they've had so many driver issues, hardware issues with the 7900 XTX. Even if it only affected a small amount of GPUs, it's still really bad marketing for everybody to see, and their drivers haven't been the best. There have been several issues. So all of that make them seem like it's the cheaper option. At the end of the day, the gamers and consumers, which make up really the core of the market, are left with these companies overcharging us because of all of the mistakes that they made, like with RTX 3000 getting way too much inventory. They got a little bit too greedy, and now they have to price RTX 4000 pretty much up and away, and people just want to play games or do content creation, render files, videos, 3D work. And if getting these products to do these things get more and more expensive in the future, they may have to find different alternatives, or maybe even games may not get nearly as good and progress as quickly because people are going to have to game on lesser hardware. And maybe even if some other companies step in, like Apple or something like that, I'm sure companies like Apple can definitely take many users away from the Windows PC market, especially on the creative side, like they've always done. But little by little, they're trying to get more into gaming. That's why they have that arcade and everything like that. And let's say they actually make a computer that can adequately do gaming for less power draw, and things just work with better customer service. At the end of the day, PC gaming is getting just as expensive, if not more, than having Apple computers. So definitely a weird quandary that we're in, that I even have to bring that up. But it seems like only having two competitors is really not good for the market. Of course, Intel is trying to get in there. I guess they have. So if you want to be fair, you can definitely compare against, three different GPU makers, but Intel is not really on the high end where a lot of these GPU problems surface at first, like the 4080, 4090, 7900 XTX. So hopefully something changes, but for now, gamers are definitely very upset, And I don't see anything changing. It's going to get even worse as these companies make less and less money. They're just going to try to squeeze whatever they can out of the hardware that they're putting out. And it's probably not going to be as impressive as we've seen, but it definitely will continue to be very expensive. All right, guys, let me know what you think down below. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video. And remember to subscribe and smash that like button if you like GPU content like this and just getting that information out there.